All right. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And I am so excited to share one of the biggest and best success stories of all time on Givebutter. We're joined with some fundraising experts, some of the best and brightest people that I know in fundraising, to talk about how the local media association raised over $1.5 million across 250 media outlets on the Givebutter platform. So many amazing insights to share. It's going to be a packed hour, and I hope to make it a really, really valuable one. I'm going to be here to steward the conversation, but I want to really put as much time in the hands of our friends that are joining the call here today. Just to give a quick overview, we're going to do some quick introductions to introduce some of our guest speakers here today. And I also want to say this is our first Givebutter webinar, so really special, and thank you all for joining us today. A new endeavor for us, and really excited about that. We'll move to set the stage to sort of how this all came to be. Want to spotlight one success story in particular from our friends over at The Day, and how they, as a single entity, raised over $87,000 with LMA. We'll go into more success stories, pulling a bird's eye view, talk about key fundraising insights across the many, many outlets that were a part of this endeavor, and then we'll leave some time for questions at the end, cue those up. So with that, I'm Max. I'm the CEO of Givebutter. Instead of reading my bio, I'll just tell you that I am really, probably the least experienced fundraiser or nonprofit person, I call it, just in the sense of, Givebutter is one of the more impressive things I've done in my short work history. But really excited to bring things like Venmo, text to donate, peer-to-peer fundraising to the masses by democratizing access to best-in-class fundraising technology. Love what we get to do because we get to work with people like, I queued that up wrong, Jed, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at the Local Media Association, where he leads industry-wide business transformation and digital growth initiatives for newspapers, radio, and TV broadcasters, digital publishers, and R&D companies. He also spearheads Accelerate Local, LMA's business model accelerator, and purpose-built to foster profitable business transformation across local media. Jed's insights have been cited by the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Reuters, Day-to-Day, Fox Business, and the BBC, among others. He's a frequent speaker at industry conferences and corporate meetings, and his work has been published and taught by the Columbia Journalism School and the Yale School of Management. We also have with us today Julia Campbell. Julia is an innovative branded content strategist who is leading a combined initiative focused on branded content for the Local Media Association, Local Media Consortium, and the Facebook Journalism Project. A former Gray television executive with extensive award-winning television, digital, social, and OTT branded content experience, Campbell is working with 34 publishers to test out promising business models with the ultimate goal of reporting back to the industry and providing playbooks that publishers can use to succeed in their local markets. So thank you so much, Julia and Jed, for joining us. I'm really excited for this conversation.
We're happy to be here.
We're thrilled to be here. This has been a very fun relationship for us to build with you guys over the last few months, and it's really worked. I'll just say really quickly, LMA's mission is to help local media companies like The Day transform their business. And the work we've done over the past few months, we feel like has taken a real proactive step in helping companies like that do that. And so it's a very fun and passionate story for us to be able to tell.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to start in that. I want to set the stage here. So I want to think about if we could take ourselves back to March, April. Where were you guys? What were you thinking? What was going on over at LMA? Because this is not necessarily, the Local Media Foundation is, new in its current, what it's doing now. Very different. You guys really reacted quick with what was going on in the world at the time. Where were you before? And then what sort of set you up to sort of do what you did in early April, March time?
Yeah, why don't I start? And then Julia, why don't you piggyback? Let me go back in the time capsule to a galaxy far, far away called January of 2020. I know it seems decades, if not centuries ago. And maybe we were out at events or, you know, out on the town or at a conference or something wild, which is now completely foreign from our vocabulary today. But no, I've joked, Max, but it's not really a joke. Like if somebody had asked me on January 1st while we're doing New Year's resolutions, like what is LMA going to be focused on this year? What's your strategic plan going to look like? What are the things that you're really going to double down on? The notion of building a fundraising fund and working with almost 300 local media companies to enable them to raise donations and activate support from community would not have been something I would have responded to at that time. Doesn't mean it was not a great effort, but LMA historically had not necessarily been an entity that was working with newspapers or broadcasters or digital publishers on fundraising strategies, on activating community support. We were focused with them on different initiatives, whether it was advertising or subscriptions or branded content, the kind of things that Julia works on. And then COVID hit. And then advertising dollars were wiped out of the economy. Businesses like Sean's, and you'll hear Sean's story a little bit later, were really pivoting on the fly. I mean, you're talking about changing the business model, you know, completely replacing the engine in the car as that car is going through the midst of a funnel cloud. I mean, that's really what it was like. And we had to ask ourselves, as a nonprofit organization that serves publishers like The Day and 3,000 others like them, what are the things that we can do right now, not tomorrow, not a month from now? What are the things that we can do right now to mobilize, to help them sustain themselves through this COVID environment and through this economic recession, on top of the already sort of business transformation they were going through in media, because media is one that's going through disruption all the time. And what we said is, like, of all the things we could do, the most important thing we can do is help them put funds in their coffers, in their pockets, specifically in their newsrooms right now, because their communities need them more than ever. They need their work, they need their insights, they need their credibility, they need their journalists on the streets doing great work, because the coronavirus, more than any story in our lifetime, is a local story in every neighborhood. How can we help these publishers get the support from their communities they need to do their great work at a time when it's more essential than ever? So Julia, maybe you can pick up there in terms of actually what we did, but Max, that's the backstory on us saying, like, how do we answer that question? We have to answer that question, and we have to mobilize and build something that our publishing community can take advantage of. NOW, all caps, 5 exclamation marks right now. So Julia, that was the impetus for us in getting going.
I mean, I can't stress the now enough because that was exactly what we had. Normally you have something that would be a strategic plan, and we put a business model behind it, and we'd come up with a 3 to 6 month roadmap of how we're going to build it out. And that was not something that we could do. We needed to find tools, create a marketing kit, and turn it around within not days, not months. It needed to be, what can we have ready by Monday, because it's Saturday night and we know that there's a need immediately. And so that's where we started to kind of think through, like, what do we have access to? What have we used in the past? What tools do we know are going to work? And then let's find out who can adopt it. And then it was just a matter of starting to do our own grassroots, like reaching out to people that we work with closely, starting to do some webinars and just saying, like, listen, we've got something that's ready for you now. Bring it on board, and we'll see what we can do to help you guys immediately. And so that was our big focus, is what can we do quickly and what can we do effectively, and make it simple on the publisher end, because they needed to focus completely on the news side.
I just want to add one quick thought, and then Max, we can dive deeper. The timeline we're talking about here, we went from nothing. We went from nothing but a kernel of an idea at my desk in my breakfast room where I'm talking to you now, to having this up and running and publishers driving real dollars from their communities in the span of 7 days. And actually, if you look at our overall results, at this point, more than $1.6 million has come in across 50 states, across 225 plus publishers in 111 days. Like, it's all happened that fast. And I would tell you, the biggest thing was removing friction for our participating publishers. And by that, I mean, make it dead simple for Sean and Carlos and Doreen and Jackie and the team at The Day and other teams like them across every state that we're serving here to do what they do best. Because what they do best is build community relationships, deliver great content and news, help bridge together readers and advertisers and community groups, and use that to strengthen their relationship with audiences and ask those audiences to support them. And so we made it very clear from the outset, there would be no technology lift. There would be no new product they had to build, nothing they would have to migrate. We basically said, we got this, guys. You focus on what you do best. And we want to empower you to go tell your stories in your markets with your readers.
So I'm hearing you needed to move quickly. You needed it to be efficient. You needed to remove friction. You needed to be effective. Like this needed to work for people, work for businesses that really needed it. How did you translate that into practical terms? Like what was sort of the first kind of like, where did you kind of start in that exploration of those sort of pain points and what you needed to fill? And then how did you, like, what was sort of the practical first step, I guess, that I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now who are saying, you know, who maybe not have the same immediate urgency that you felt at that point when, you know, I think a lot of organizations fell, and a lot of organizations did do something, or some are still sort of thinking about it. But for people that think I need to move quickly, I need to remove friction for my supporters to engage, or I need to, you know, I need an effective platform or tool or solution or system. Like what were some of those sort of practical things that you put into place to enable those things to be possible?
I'll start, and Julia will have better answers than me, but also she usually does, but I'll start. I think I would use 2 words here. I would use, and I think you really hit on them. I would use, one is flexibility, and the other is just efficacy. Does it work? Like we needed a tool, like obviously, because we're using the Givebutter platform, it wasn't going to be like fully customized and fully white labeled. And that's not what publishers needed. Publishers needed the ability to take a tool and build upon it, to embed it in their websites the way they wanted to utilize the link and build language around it in marketing campaigns with their email channels, with their social channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. To use it to build YouTube videos, to drive traffic back to the site or back to their Givebutter story page, to run it in their print newspaper, to run it on their website as advertisements. What we needed was a very simple tool that enabled great possibility in terms of how publishers could use it to build marketing messages. And then of course, and Julia can talk about some of those, and I think Sean will get into this as well. The other thing, and this is obvious, but it's very true, when you know, LMA is not a product organization either, I should mention. And so, you know, we didn't have time, nor do we necessarily have the capacity to go through some great vetting process and demo 10 different tools. And we don't have designers and developers on staff. We needed to have the confidence that the tool, the platform would have the flexibility, like I talked about, for the publishers that we work with, constituents that we work with, and that it would work. That it would work first time, that it would work every time, that there would be a consistent user experience, both for our publisher partners and their end users that are actually donating the funds to their journalism, and that experience would be consistently good, and also just consistent in terms of the same experience every time, to make it easy for a publisher to get started, to make it easy for a user to go through that workflow. And I can tell you that the thing that gave me in particular, and us, the most confidence, was that we had used Givebutter for our Accelerate Local Week of Giving campaign last fall. So we were already a customer, we were already a user. We had already gone through that process of feeling out the tech, what works for us, what doesn't. Can this scale with us as we grow? Can it handle more capacity as more money comes in, as more users flow in? And we felt confident that our answers to those questions were yes. And that gave us the confidence to go, we think this has the flexibility that different types of partners are going to have. And we think this has the capacity to keep working as we go from 1 to 10 to 100 to 300 publishers. So Julia, please expand upon that. But those are 2 things I certainly was looking for at the outset.
You know, I think with working with a variety of different publishers, we know that, you know, that there's an overall brand of what this fund was going to be, what we're raising money for, and the overall message. But there's individual brands that mean a lot more to the folks in a local market. You know, LMF doesn't mean much, you know, in the day's viewing area and reading area. That, you know, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. So we need to make sure that there was an ability to have something that was streamlined and something that we could duplicate, but also something that could be customized and rebranded locally, because that was going to be much more important in terms of being able to market this in a local market. So that was something that we really need to focus on. How to, you know, what kinds of things are we able to do with a header graphic? You know, how can we customize those stories to make sure that each one is telling a local version of what this fund is about? And even the thank you message, and that was a huge piece of this too, is how are we able to think this and have it seem like it's coming from the local publisher and not an unnamed fund that people don't understand. So I think that was the big thing for us, is how do we, streamline it so we can build one and then duplicate it 250 times, but also customize to the level of need that we know we were going to need to see.
Yeah, the perfect mix of sort of form, function, flexibility, accessibility, all those things to kind of make this very sort of complicated system very simple for people to participate in and join and customize and use to the best of its ability. Without, sometimes the best thing a technology can do is just kind of get out of the way, right? It's like you know what you need to do, you know what you want the outcome to be, but the technology can sometimes get in the way of that. So it's really great, and I know we're going to unpack that a lot more. I want to kind of give you a chance here to kind of sort of set the stage for the day here, and how that kind of came to be. That's a sort of shining example of one of the publishers that participated in this campaign that you have been running, had their own campaign, their own, very interesting set of implementation that they did. This is just one of, again, 250 plus publishers that participated, but did so many interesting things just in this one. So I'm really excited to put the spotlight on them. But Jed or Julia, I'll let one of you sort of cue it up here, and I'll sort of share my screen so that we can let the day kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I'm happy to queue up Sean and team here. They've been one of our shining stars from day one in the COVID-19 Local News Fund. And I've known Sean for a long time at many stops for both of us in local media. And it's a really unique company. It's a special local media company, the way they're built, the way their ownership is structured. Sean will talk about that here in a second. And they've, I think one thing, and he can certainly shine the spotlight on this better than me, but you'll see it even in this deck. But the day has really brought together a full team effort to experience the success they have. They brought together revenue and audience and editorial and top leadership. And there were several people in those departments involved, even in building this story today, that Sean's going to walk through it. I know he'll give them a shout out, but the day is in our top 4 or 5 publishers in terms of overall funds that they've raised. They've used really almost every vehicle you can think of, from their own, what we call owned and operated vehicles, like their website and their print newspaper, to social media channels and email newsletters and YouTube channels, like so many in the audience have, whether you're a newspaper company or you're a small nonprofit trying to figure out, how to reach your audience and what your sea legs are. So anyway, we were really thrilled to be able to invite the day, and thrilled that Sean, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at the day, will be able to take a few minutes here and walk through their story and all the things that went into their success here. So Sean, over to you.
Hey, great. Thank you, Jed. I appreciate the welcome and the introduction. Thank you to Max and the Givebutter team. Before I get into my remarks, I have to stop for a second and just reiterate what both Jed and Julia said at the start of this thing. And I frankly wasn't thinking about 2020 in a galaxy far, far away in January, because like all of us, we're living in the past 10 minutes. I can't tell you what happened this morning, and is that really still relevant anymore, right? The world is just evolving so rapidly. But I will say that, when we sat down in January, this wasn't what we planned. We actually had a phenomenal first quarter at my company, and I was thrilled about that. And we were on our way to hitting our revenue marks for the year, and really making a lot of transition and really building our company for the future. And then this happened, right? And then the COVID happened. But I will say that in some strange way that I don't like to admit that often, I won't say that I'm glad it happened, because that would be silly. But I will say that I'm glad that this relationship happened, because without COVID and without what we went through, and without the opportunity to join with the Local Media Association through their foundation, giving us a 501c3 outlet, which we don't have, to collect this money, it really, it helped us not only get through a rough patch, but also helped us think about the future, and perhaps change how we look at the role that philanthropy and fundraising can play in our company. Because frankly, that wasn't on our minds. It was on our minds in a very, very, very small way. Like, yeah, we'll get to that. It's something we should look at, but it wasn't a priority for us in Q1. It just wasn't. And even though, we went remote and left our offices in the middle of March, like a lot of people did, we weren't thinking about all of this. We thought it was going to be over by like May or June. We were going to come back and it was going to be a full steam back ahead, and it just didn't happen. So anyway, I'm glad that this happened, and I'm glad that we had this relationship. So thank you to LMA and Givebutter, and Julia, emphasizing your point about now. I just looked at my calendar quickly when Julia was talking, and if I'm not mistaken, and my Outlook calendar and LMA's calendar will prove this out. I'm pretty sure that we sat in on a webinar on Friday, April 10th with the local media association and a bunch of people saying, hey, we've got this, after getting an email probably on Thursday, April 9th, saying we're going to have a webinar about how you guys can raise money. You should join this. So my colleagues and I, who I'll talk about in a second, joined the webinar. We were live and raising money Sunday, April 12th. That's how quickly this happened. So that didn't happen because the day is, because of anything we did, except we sat on a webinar and filled out a couple forms and provided our logo. That was the end of our involvement. The local media team and the Givebutter team really took it from there. And thank you, because it wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen. This is not what we do, and we would have messed it up had we tried. So we really appreciate having pros helping us get through the way. So yeah, just a little bit about the day. We are in Southeast Connecticut, New London, Connecticut as our home office. For those of you familiar with the geography, you know where that is. For those of you not, it's, you know, close to a little town called Mystic, which a lot of folks have heard of, not too far from Foxwoods, Mohegan Sun. Anybody with a military bent, we have Sub-Base New London, and the United States Coast Guard Academy is literally about a quarter mile up the street from us. So that's kind of where we are. Shoreline community, Southeast Connecticut, very small, insulated, if you will, community. Day's been around for 139 years. We are a very unique ownership model, which Jed touched on. We are owned by a trust, and we are governed by a will. So we are a truly, truly, truly independent newspaper. We cannot be sold. We cannot be, you know, shut down. We have to continue. It's sort of the model, ownership model that we have. What makes our model so unique, not only is the independence of our journalism, which is critically important, every day, especially now, but every day that's important. But what makes our model so unique in our community is that we are a for-profit business. So we are not a nonprofit, which again makes the connection to local media foundation all the more important to us, because, you know, I don't know who's on this webinar, but if you're not a nonprofit and you want to fundraise, you need a connection there. So having that is really helpful. It made it a lot easier for us. But what it means to our community is that all the money that we raise, and, you know, we employ our people, we pay our bills, we run our business, the profit that's left over at the end of the year gets converted to the other half of the trust that owns our company, which is the Public Benevolent Foundation. And all the profit sits in that organization. That organization has a separate board of directors in which all the local nonprofits in our community then apply for grants from us. So we not only, you know, write the news and report on the journalism and keep people honest and accountable. We generate revenue in support of that. And then our profit that gets left over then gets given right back to those same people. So we truly are a community resource here. There's no one else like us in the country. There just isn't. So, and then I'm not bragging about that part. It's just a unique fact. We are the only model that sets us up in that way. So we really are a special place to work. So that's a little bit about us. We're a daily newspaper. We own a combination of 15 weekly newspapers. We also have weekly newspapers anywhere from, you know, from the city of New Haven, further down along the shoreline in Connecticut, all the way up to the Rhode Island border. We touch every home from New Haven to Westerly, Rhode Island. So that is our footprint along the ocean. We own several magazines, including a statewide tourism magazine that is distributed throughout the Northeast on highway rest stops, you know, train stations, airports, etc. And we own a full service advertising agency as well. So that's a little bit about our company. I'm going to go to the next slide. Max, thank you. So we'll talk about our results. Before I talk about our results, I just want to give a shout out to some of my colleagues who are on this webinar. As Jed said, this truly was a team effort. Excuse me. The day really, we do a lot of things collaboratively. We're small enough to be able to do that. And we're also, you know, we all understand and appreciate where we are, and that our model is so unique that we're not run like a corporation at all. We really do work well together. So as the Chief Revenue Officer, I oversee all the incoming revenue to the company, as well as our advertising agency and our weekly groups. On the call with me today is Doreen Madden, who's our Director of Marketing and Specialized Content. We have Carlos Virgen, our Digital News Director from the newsroom. And I'm not sure if she's here or not, but Jackie Nardone is our Marketing Manager, who really did the nuts and bolts and the heavy lifting. Not that there was any heavy lifting, but the lifting that we had to do on our side to support this campaign was with Jackie. So we work together. Every time we're on a call with the LMA, it's the four of us. We really try to all be there representing different parts of the company, because I think if you don't have ownership across the company and leadership and support from the top, you're not going to get the success that you need. So, and we did have some success. We were flat out surprised, because you just don't know. you know, who's going to give us money? I don't know. You know, we found out, you know, 790 people gave us money to the tune of $87,000. We actually had another $4,000 raised through our weekly group, through another 100 or so donors out of that organization. So really well, an average donation of 110 bucks. There was one $10,000 contribution, one significant contribution from a local foundation. If you back that out of it, it's pretty much about 100 bucks a person is what our donation was. So that was really nice to see. We'll talk about the tactics that we use, but obviously we're a newspaper, we're a publisher, so we have print newspapers and we ran print ads. As Jed said, we utilized email marketing, social media, as well as video, featuring a lot of our journalists. So next slide, please, Max. So these are some of the print ads that we did. So again, going back to dates, we started this campaign on Monday, the 13th of April, with an ad much like this on the left here saying, we're doing this, please help us. That's kind of what we asked for. And then as we traveled on, and the next iteration of the print ad was an ad more like the one on the right, where we started using some of these quotes. I must say, and this is a credit to Givebutter, a credit to Givebutter for having the technology, and frankly, a credit to our amazing donors. Of the 790 people who gave us money, I hazard a guess, I don't know the number, but I bet you about 775 of them took the time to leave us a comment. And the comments were really, really moving and really, really special. They really sustained all of us. I know particularly our journalists, and Carlos is on the call, and he can talk. He understands what happened in the newsroom and how our journalists just didn't stop. They just kept going and kept going and kept going, and were reporting and reporting and reporting, and it helped them go. And also a lot of our carriers got shouts out, you know, in this time of challenging time. You know, a lot of folks were just really impressed that our carriers were there every morning with their paper. So it was nice to see. And even across the company, I think everybody stopped. And if we're not on the journalism side of the company, we don't always appreciate what the journalists do. And I think this gave the entire company a chance to say, wow, look at what those guys do, those guys and girls do, and look what it means to our readers. Not only are they giving us $87,000 for that, they're also taking the time to write us a note. So that's a really cool part of your platform that sustained us, and we used it a lot. It really did. So our print ads ran throughout our daily newspapers, our weekly newspapers, and also just across our website as well, just static display ads online. And of course, the online ads were all hyperlinked right to the donate page as well. So the next slide, please, Max. Another print ad, again, this is a sort of an expansion of our thank you. In the middle of that is on the ad on the left, you'll see a pull quote from our publisher, Tim Dwyer. One of the other things that we did, an early on tactic, was Tim wrote a front page letter to the community, effectively asking for money. That's something very difficult and very uncommon. And if those of you that don't work in media can't appreciate that, I understand. And especially if you work in fundraising, you spend your life asking for money. We don't do that. And we just don't do that. And I can't say it any simpler than that. Advertising people do it because we're trying to generate money for the company. No one else does that in our industry. So this is a big deal, and this got us to do that. We weren't going to do this otherwise. There was no way Tim was going to write this letter, but he wrote it, and boy, did the floodgates open. And it really, really pushed us over the top. This hit on a Sunday front page column from the publisher, effectively laying out the situation that our revenues are down 40%, and we still produce this paper every day for you guys. We need your help, and this is and it worked. So this was and then we ran some thank you ads, as you can see later. All of those shaded boxes are different thank you messages. We just screened them so they would appear differently on the screen, but those are just synopsises of all the thank you messages that we got. So really, really powerful stuff. Can go to the next slide now. So in social, we use Facebook primarily. We would run ads on our own Facebook channel, or Facebook page, excuse me, for the day. Shortly after this started, of course, May 5th is Giving Tuesday. And that was, I'm not sure where the idea came from. I'll let Jed or Julia answer that one. It became Giving Newsday in our business. I'm not sure if they can take credit for that or not, but we can't.
We'll take partial, not full.
Okay, that's fair. I'll take none. I'll take none, except that we stole it with encouragement from our friends Jed and Julia.
Steal away. We're glad you did.
And we used it on May 5th to drive a different drive a different message saying, Giving Newsday. And not that everybody who reads our paper spends any time reading, the LA Times or the Dallas Morning News or the, Spokane Review in Washington. That's not what it's about, but not everybody, a lot of papers across the country did just the very thing. So we're trying to build a little momentum for the industry here, and it was a cool thing. So that was our message on May 5th. So our social posts, not everybody gets the day. We understand that. We're a paid newspaper, so you have to choose to subscribe to us. And if you don't subscribe to us, you don't get us. I mean, that's not rocket science, right? But a lot of folks follow us on social, whether it's on our Facebook account or our Twitter account, YouTube channel, etc. So Facebook is our largest social channel, so we use this, and it worked quite well for us. And of course, our staff was encouraged to take these posts, not just, everybody in our staff, our entire company was encouraged to share these on their own personal Facebook pages to really spread the message. And of course, everything that we did had the link right up there above that blue box. You see our donation URL of givebutter.com/theday. So that was on everything that we did, always encouraging folks to come back and make a contribution. So that was good. Another message that we did, another thank you message, our email message we did was also with, emails next. The social message we did was with our comments as well. Utilizing comments from the community in our Facebook posts were really powerful. So, okay, next slide, please. I'm sorry. That was actually a slide. So these are some of the emails, social posts that we put, taking different messages. You can see we need you, we support you. Some folks are apologizing because they're giving us $20. No apology necessary, folks. Thank you. This is no bill due here. Whatever you can give us is fine. And we had people. One person stepped up and said, this is the day's finest hour, and wrote us a rather large check. So that was really special as well to see. So we can't read the comments now, but I wish everybody could, because they're powerful. And I know everybody that in my shoes, in our team's shoes across the industry, felt that with these comments. Next is email. So email is really powerful for us. We used email in a couple different ways. We sent out 3 different emails, all to lists that we have of current subscribers, former subscribers, and what we call never subscribers, but we have their email address. They probably entered a contest. They had some communication with us, so we've built an email database, and they're all people that we know of, excuse me. And so we put out an email message again of just saying, hey, please donate, a general ask, if you will, email message to everybody. And I'm going to skip ahead to the third one, which was giving Newsday in May. We used that one as well in an email push. And the second one that we did is the one that just opened the floodgates, and it was by far the most impactful thing that we did, which was that same letter from our publisher that ran on front page on a Sunday. The following week, we did it. I think it was a Sunday again. It hit as an email, and it went out. And it just, I don't remember. I want to say that week we generated $40,000, I think, in about 4 days, something like that. We went from like 20 to 60 grand in 4 days. And it was the email from the publisher, the same message, but different audience, not just on the front page of the paper, now hitting people in their inbox. Some of the folks subscribe, some don't, some never did. But when you're sitting at your computer and the email comes with a hot link, it's really easy to donate, right? So click the link, and giving is easy. So that's what happened. So that really was the best thing that we did all along. Each of those email blasts were about 35 to, I think one of them was up to 50,000 email addresses, excuse me, is how many went out. And the last thing that we did, and I don't have a slide to show this, unfortunately, and I didn't want to take the chance of putting videos into the PowerPoint because they don't, again, I don't do technology like this. This is not what we do. So we didn't run the risk, but we use videos. And Carlos, who's on this webinar today, and his team in news recorded, I think it was 11 of our journalists, but it was a decent number of journalists who, again, don't ask for money, don't get involved in the business side of the company. It's not what they do, and that's okay. We understand that they're trying to keep their independence and focus on journalism and not get involved in how the paper and how the business sustains itself. That's what those of us on the business side do. But yet they were all moved and felt compelled to record a video explaining what COVID meant to them, how they were working from home, and how this was important to them, and how this was a passion of theirs, and why they are journalists, and why they are enjoying being a journalist in a challenging time, which I don't understand journalists. They're amazing people. They love it more when things get more stressful, which is, God bless them. That's why they're doing what they're doing. But they stepped up and they recorded these amazing videos. And we were sharing those all over social as well. And, they weren't necessarily begging for money, but they were saying, please help us if you can. And that was it. That's all they had to say. And they did it. And we used those and we shared those around as well. So the videos on Facebook did really, really well. Again, they went out on the day's Facebook. Each of the reporters that had Facebook, which probably all of them did, shared it, put it on their own personal page and got their own personal connections involved. And those of us, the rest of the company could also take it and share it. So that did really, really well. So I think that's all I had. Yes, that is all I had. But certainly happy to answer questions. I don't know how you guys, I guess we'll do those later. I think is how Max wants to do that, which is fine. So I guess I'll kick it back to Jed and Julia.
Sean, that's awesome. I mean, you can see why, Max, we wanted to invite Sean and the team to tell this story. It's a great success story, but there's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes in terms of the team, the storytelling, the mission of the organization, the relationships they have with their community, obviously with their readers, but also with their advertisers, with community organizations and foundations. There's a lot here that's special and unique, but also hopefully a lot here that's accessible to folks in the audience, whether they're a newspaper company or a nonprofit or a club or whatever. It's really about developing relationships and nurturing relationships with your audience. And if you do that and you create value for them and you demonstrate and you explain the value you create for them and the jobs you do for them in their daily lives and the problems you solve for them, they will support you.
Yeah, I want to just add on top and say, Sean, the supporter messages that you shared have inspired us to actually do a lot more with the supporter feed. I mean, seeing the larger LMA campaigns, but specifically the ads that you were running with those messages and the in print and then on social media sharing, it's one of those things that I feel like Jed, you could probably, and Julia, I don't think when you sign up for Givebutter, I mean, maybe the supporter feed was a part of that decision, but it's one of those things I feel like most people see it, they use Givebutter, and then it's like a surprise. Like you mentioned, like 775 and maybe your 790 donors left a message. I mean, I mean, you don't know the number, but the point is you were able to fill a newspaper up with them. I mean, that's really, really cool. And I can just say for me, it's extremely meaningful for me to see that, even though I'm not on the other side of it, just to see is so cool. I mean, I'm really inspired by that. And us at Givebutter, we want to do a lot more with the thank you experience, the post donation experience, the supporter experience. We want to make these living, breathing experiences for folks that want to, they want to show what they care, put their name on it and leave a message and make it, it's in our name, Givebutter. So thanks for sharing that. It's been a really,
you guys just broke a quick interjection. You guys should feel really good about that and the power of that. And actually, I'll tell you from my perspective, it was, I don't know exactly I can't remember exactly what all my decision points were on, March 15th or March 25th, but the comment feed was not among them. It wasn't a make or break decision point for me. And then we started seeing organically what was happening with the first publishers that were participating, like The Day and others like them. And we went holy cow, this is extremely powerful unto itself. What people are saying unsolicited, they're not being coaxed or cajoled to do this. They not only want to give, they want to put their personal reputation and put their personal stamp and their personal story on what all of this means. And it was remarkable, and it continues to be remarkable to think about it in that context. And then of course the number of ways that Sean and others have been able to use those to say thank you, to further promote their campaigns and drive more awareness and drive more support. But also, I mean, I'll take it a step further. I mean, I know publishers that are in this program that are taking these comments, Max, and building posters out of them and putting them on their walls in their offices, when we can have offices again. And, they'll put them in their lobbies and they're going to have them in their offices. And this will be in the binder that a new hire gets when a new hire is trying to understand the culture of the place and what this thing's all about and why you should be proud of the mission and values of the company. And I'm not a particularly mushy person. I'm really not. I'm an objective business guy, but it's pretty awesome to hear them being this reminded us of why we do the job. And we're going to use this to promote the culture of the place to ourselves internally and externally.
Yeah, it was so powerful. Our publisher every month would write a letter to the board, because that's part of what we do. We do a monthly board report, and he would always put in, during April and May, here's what the fundraising, here's how much money we have so far, from this fund. But every month without fail, he would say, but the comments, but the comments, that was more important than the money. Yeah, we got $87,000. That's awesome. Don't get me wrong. That's very helpful, and we appreciate every dime that we got. But the comments are priceless. They're worth way more than $87,000. They really are. If we didn't get the money and still got the comments, we'd still be happy.
Yeah.
We really would be.
Yeah.
We absolutely would be. So.
Well, thank you, Sean. Thanks to the Days team over there. Really amazing work and inspiring story, and I really appreciate you joining. I'm gonna, we were a little bit just looking at the time, running along. what I wanna say to anyone in the audience who has questions, please do leave them. We've got Rachel and Tori here from the Givebutter side, and folks from the day, and Jed and Julia can all kind of chip in on those and answer any after. So I wanna give Jed and Julia at least 15 minutes here to walk through some of the key insights they learned from the, the day, like I said, amazing, incredible work on the ground there. Pull out bird's eye view here and look at across, over 250 media outlets. What did we learn, and what did we see? So, with that, Jed and Julia, take it away.
Yeah, Julia, why don't I hand to you, and you can touch on these bullet points, and then we're going to keep it brief so we can make sure we get out for questions. But I know that Max and team have assembled a few other case studies that really hit on some of these other strategies and tactics that have worked for publishers as part of this fund. So maybe Julia, you can hit on the bullets quickly, and then we'll do some deeper dives.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just kind of hit these real quickly. What you see here is a collection of what we saw, overall from 250 campaigns. What works. We realized that, just like these guys mentioned already, the great comments, repurpose those comments and really, access and harvest them. And when you're building your stories, think about how you can use video, because that was very effective for a lot of our campaigns, and just in their story page is how are they using video? How can they do a personalized message? So that was a huge piece that we saw very effective. And heartfelt messaging, money is personal, right? And you're asking for money. So how can you do that in a personal way? Tell your personal story. That was a big factor in being able to really communicate why these folks were raising money the way they were. And peer-to-peer outreach was a huge thing. So it's more than just putting up a page and then leaving it static. There's something where you have to outreach to your social network. That campaign there, you guys read the link later, that the publisher of that paper actually was texting everyone she knows and said, we need to get some money, we need some support, here's the link, and doing a text-to-text campaign was hugely effective for her. And these next two, everyone wins and donation matching. We saw a lot of our publishers were able to offer something in return. So it was, if you donate $100, we're going to give you a $100 ad match. So we saw a few of those. So really, that's really how we can have everybody win. So the publishers winning because they're getting a donation, the donors winning because they're able to do some good for the community, and then they would donate an ad match for a nonprofit or another local organization that was really effective. And then keep in mind that you want to, publish why you're doing this, examples of your work. Eye-catching photography, showing your team photo and the history of why you're in business. And again, I can't stress this enough, just like you've always heard, make sure that then those stories and really utilizing those comments. It's a huge piece of this is, how can you reshare and repurpose those comments that come into your page?
I'll just add two things before we dive into the case studies. I want to hit on the peer-to-peer outreach for a second, and then I want to hit on the matching stuff. So on the peer-to-peer outreach, Julia makes a really good point. Like, you have to leverage all of your networks smartly. And a lot of those, as Max and the team know, are really sort of technology enabled. In other words, like, the stronger your email database, the more emails you have, the more highly qualified that list, the more active that list, the better opportunity and success you're probably going to have when you're able to send out targeted and segmented email sends with really crisp and compelling messaging. Same thing with Facebook. You have to build that community, and then you think about tactics like, am I going to run paid campaigns or boosted posts, or am I going to run Facebook Live videos? So there's technology at the root. I say technology, marketing practice at the root of a lot of this. But there's also a fair amount of just shoe leather. You just got to hustle. I mean, there's a guy in here we're going to talk about in a minute who's smaller than the day. He's a weekly newspaper in central New York. And I mean, it's pretty dire straits for them for a while. And I won't get into all the story because we'll get into it here in a minute. But he just went to everybody he knew. And he wasn't asking them to give, but he was asking them hey, do you know two people who would be able to give? Go tell two. I just need you to tell two of your friends. You don't have to give me a dime, but I need you to tell two friends. And you do that with 100 people, and like suddenly you've got a chain letter that takes off in a good way. And that's what he did. And you'll see it with, well, I don't know if Houston Defender is one of our case studies, but Julia meant Houston Defender is one of our best success stories. And she just texted everybody, not in a spammy way, but she just got after it one weekend. Like there's just smoke coming out of her phone. And sure enough, like they've been hugely successful. The other thing with matching, I want to mention quickly, and this might be somewhat unique to publishers, but I don't think so. I think lots of nonprofits and community organizations can succeed at this, which is if you get a partner, in this case, if you get a community foundation or a business enterprise to basically be a sponsor or a champion and say, you know what, like Julia said, if you go out and raise $1,000, we'll match your 1,000 or 10,000 or 100 or whatever. But it gives you this, this sort of like power of the crowd, this network to be able to go out to your network and go like, hey, we've got supporters with us. This group is all in, and they've said for every nickel you provide, we're throwing in another nickel. There's power in that. There's credibility in that. Look for an ability to find that partner or partners early on and use them to help you build the credibility of your story as you get out to market with your campaign. So anyway, Max, I know we'll get into examples, but I wanted to mention those things.
Yeah, two quick additions here is one of the things that I think on this side on the right is so interesting is like a lot of, you know, we'll see campaigns on Givebutter that will raise large dollars, but what's so incredible here is the number of donors and the average donation size. Like there were you know, Sean mentioned from the day that sort of one large $10,000 donor, but the average donation size kind of leveling out around $100. I mean, it's really incredible to see that, how many people participated in this and kind of the insights you pull from there. I also want to mention anyone listening or viewing that this presentation will share after along with the recording so that all these, you know, links that are on this slide here for each example that Julia walked through and Jed highlighted as well. You'll be able to check out the campaigns and learn a little bit more about all of these after the
you kind of hit my magic words there. Like if you ask me like what I'm proudest of from an LMA perspective, like our mantra has been democratizing giving, both for publishers to participate and for their audiences to help them. And I love that 16,000 number. I just love it. And I love that it came from all 50 states. And to me, like whether that equated to 500,000 or 500 million, like I feel like we achieved the purpose with those numbers. So I just had to say that.
Oh, highlight a couple. Yeah, I'll highlight a couple of these case studies. I'm going to start with this one, and Jed will kind of wrap up with the next two. But this is the Afro. So this is a newspaper. They've been in business since I think it looks like 1882. So a huge amount of history. And that's what this video really focused on is the history of why they're here, how they're helping the community, and how important it is to continue on with that mission. And so that was a huge, powerful message from their publisher. And the other piece to this that's so important with this particular case study is that their supporter comments were amazing. So it wasn't just a great comment, it was pictures. They did donations that were in remembrance of people who used to be Afro subscribers and since passed away. And there were pictures of themselves reading newspapers when they were kids. Like it was an incredible story. So there's a story just in the story on this one. It's just how the supporter pictures really came to be and really how impressive it was. So we can't stress enough the importance of repurposing those pieces and those supporter comments and really just personalizing everything through the process. It's been a huge benefit for the Afro as well as a lot of our other publishers.
Okay, so on to our next one. I'll take this one. This is the one I already kind of stole my own thunder. This is the Examiner in New York and a guy named Adam Stone, who we've gotten to know in recent months, and talk about a guy who's full of hustle and ambition and just like hits the streets to make this happen. Small weekly newspaper, small markets. You can see the message on the left here, very sincere and very honest about like they were in real dire straits, furloughing journalists, not being able to do the coverage that their community needed and deserved. And he went out and made a very strong plea for support. And so, you know, I think there's a couple of learnings here. I mean, one is just the honesty and the transparency of who you are, what you do, and what you need, and how the community can support you. The other is, again, this is the guy who said, I have to kind of build my own network effects here. Yes, we're going to email our email database. Absolutely. We're going to utilize Facebook. We're going to utilize Twitter, all those things. But also he's the publisher. He's the face of that brand in that community. He's known in that community. His family is known in that community. Just like if you have your own nonprofit or your own group or whatever, in many ways, you're the face of that brand. How do you actually utilize and bring that to life? And he did that with that very simple asking campaign that I mentioned a minute ago, where he emailed everybody in his network, you know, use this language here and more, amplified the need and the mission and said, my request is that you share this with 2 people. that have the ability to give us $25 or more. And this exploded for them. They ended up raising almost $30,000, but they raised 15 of that, Julia, in a very short period of time, at a time when that was critical, at a time when that allowed them to keep the lights on and keep paying journalists and keep doing work. So this is a case study in particular I'm really proud of. And then if we go on to the last one, this is a group, Sean and I both know this group. This is the Record Journal, also in Connecticut, just down the road from the day. Family-owned newspaper, 5th generation. It's been in their family for 153 years. And we wanted to isolate this story because I think a lot like the day, they did a wonderful job, didn't raise as much money, but raised a lot of money. Actually, they had some checks that came in as well. And so it took their total past $20,000. But they did a really good job of just talking, of kind of putting a personal face on their organization. This is their whole company, their whole newsroom right now. Their newsroom is in and of that community, has been for 5 generations. Their publisher, Liz White, says very openly, she's a 5th generation owner and proud of it and chooses to be in this industry. And you know, they even created their own tagline around this campaign, #RJUnited. And it was a really powerful and personal way for them to go out to market. So, and a really good story page overall, really good photo and a really good mission statement written as a letter by the publisher to personalize it that was effective for them. So we could give 221 other examples, but we will not have time for that today.
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button. I kept clicking around. There we go. Let's get back to the question slide. Where are we? There we go. Okay. Well, I'll just leave this up. And Rachel, do you want to cue it from here?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Definitely have got some great questions coming in. Time is limited, but I'm going to throw a few out to anyone who is interested in answering. I have one specifically for Max and the rest for everybody else on the panel. This one's from Katie. She said that she's running fundraising for a nonprofit student newspaper, and she's wondering how they can approach messaging in a way that's sensitive to readers and supporters who may be struggling financially during the pandemic, which I think is relevant not only to, I think it's relevant to all nonprofits that are probably listening right now. So I thought that was a great question. Would love to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, I'll speak to that briefly. We actually had similar debate internally at our company. I mentioned briefly on this call earlier that we have a group of weekly newspapers where we ran a separate campaign because they operate under a separate brand. That group of papers does its own, it's called voluntary pay. We send out a letter, you know, old school, not technology like this, but an old school letter goes out once a year saying, don't you love our free newspaper? If so, please send us money. You know, I'm paraphrasing. And we generate a fair amount of money through that process every year. Just by the way the timing worked out, that campaign letter went out like the first week in March. So, and it was doing quite well. It really was. And then when we saw, and so we launched the campaign at the day with Givebutter and LMF. And then we saw the results we were having. We want to do the same thing over at our other group. But we realized that we had just put out a request and we felt that was maybe not appropriate. And we had an internal debate on that one. And ultimately we decided to go ahead and do it. We messaged appropriately. And that would be my suggestion to the questioner, which is, you know, message appropriately. I understand that things aren't great. I understand you're going through a tough time, but so are we. And here's why we're important. If you can do anything to help, please do. Or to take the example of our colleague who I haven't met yet, but I'd like to meet this guy and give him a job in my sales team who in New York, who just said, give you the names of 2 people. And that's okay. That's good enough for me. You know, anybody will take a warm lead in sales, right? So that's fine. So maybe that's the message is if you can't help us, but please share with somebody who can. Also work with local community foundations. I don't know where this is, but if there's a community foundation in your group, you can certainly work with them as well. So, you know, I know it's not easy, but you're in a different situation than we were in, but I wouldn't be afraid to ask. Student journalism is vitally important because without student journalism, there is no professional journalism. So it's critical. We all have great connections with the journalism schools in Connecticut as well as in surrounding areas. And we get kids from all over the country because they come to the day because the days where you come to learn how to be a reporter, as one of them told me once. So that's pretty cool too.
Thank you, Sean. We have another question about video length. you've mentioned that many campaigns have been utilizing video content. What would you recommend? This person who's asking the question, Nicole, has tried both short bits and longer lengths, full length songs, etc. What have you guys found to be most successful?
Go ahead, Julie. Yeah, I think ours are about a minute, but Carlos can answer for sure. But I think that's what ours were. But go ahead, Julie, if you had something else.
I was gonna say, I'm just coming from the broadcast side, so short's always gonna be better. Keep the attention span as much as you can. So, a minute and a half, I'm not sure I'd go much more than that.
Yeah.
Great. And then one more question for the panel. Given that the day is deeply rooted in the local community, how do you ensure that giving to the fund was a community activity and not individualistic?
I'm not sure I understand the question, actually. I don't know. I mean, certainly it was individuals donating, but the bulk of them were in the community. And just by their comments, we certainly knew that they were supportive of what we did in the community. Many of them referenced being generations deep in the community, growing up with the paper. People had, their ancestors had worked for the paper, or, people delivered the paper when they were kids. And I guess I probably don't understand the question well enough to answer it. So I'm not sure if my comments are helpful or not, but if somebody wants to reach out to me privately later, I'm happy to talk to you about it. And I'll try to give you a better answer if that wasn't what you were looking for.
I'm not sure either, but I would say this. I would say that, the way the day is positioned, what they're doing, and the way so many of the successful publishers in this fund have, and this campaign have, is that obviously what they're doing is larger than any one person, any one topic. I mean, they are the voice of the community. They're making sure that all voices are heard. They're making sure that all needs are met. In this case, they're making sure that essential, and in some cases life-changing and life-saving needs are met, like no exaggeration there. So I think, I don't know if this is what the question was going toward, but I think the day and others have done a really good job of saying, look, you're supporting your community. You're supporting something bigger than yourself. You're supporting an institution that is like so many other institutions that exist to service this community, to pour themselves back into this community, to make sure the community that you individually as a member of is a stronger, more vibrant community overall. It's one of the things that obviously local media can tell that story extremely well, but so can nonprofits and community organizations as essential parts of something that are bigger than any one individual.
Thank you. And then the final question for Max. Could you share a little bit more about the Givebutter platform? We have some folks that are joining that aren't as familiar, and they're just wondering if you could do just like a quick 1-minute overview of the platform.
Yeah, definitely. So also perfect timing, street noise here, but we are a fundraising platform. We do crowdfunding, online fundraising campaigns, website donations, ticketed events, and most recently virtual events. One thing that struck a chord, also going back to the last question, just about individualistic versus community giving, I also not totally sure where that question is intended to go, but one thing that it struck in my mind that I think is interesting about Givebutter is we offer a way for you to have basically a payment form, just a way to collect donations. There's no real community aspect in the sense of when I give, it's almost like direct to the organization. I enter my information. It makes a lot of sense maybe for a donate button or something like that. Just simple, straightforward, to the punch, no community component. But we also offer this Fundraise product, which was the main highlight of today, which was showing a lot of the supporter feed and the comments, the sort of added community effects that I think is really to the core of what we do and where we kind of started as a company, is building that online fundraising community. And then most recently, a lot of nonprofits, especially right now, are looking for ways to move their in-person events online and do virtual fundraising events. We offer the ability to live stream to a fundraising page, sell tickets ahead of time, collect donations before, during, and after an event, all in one place and all in real time. So it's a free platform. It's free to sign up, get started, run a campaign, withdraw your funds. We're supported on completely optional tips that donors can contribute to Givebutter. You can also turn off the tips for a little bit of a larger platform fee, but no out-of-pocket expense. So anyone considering or interested in Givebutter can create an account, try it out, and let us know what you think. So I want to say thank you so much to Julia, Jed, Sean, Carlos, the entire day team, local media association team, to Rachel, the Givebutter team. This is our first webinar, so any feedback is very much welcome. We're going to be hopefully doing this monthly. So stay tuned for more information on our next upcoming webinar. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weeks and weekend. And thank you so much for joining.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Max.
Thank you,
Sean.
Max.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jed. Thanks, everybody.